If you buy a bike from the local bike shop, then I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be pre-built and they'll check it over for you. So everything's ready to go straight away. You just got to wheel it out the shop. If you're going down the direct sales route, with a company like Canyon, say here, then this is more than likely how your bike is gonna turn up. When you do get your bike then and it's arrived at your doorstep for the first time and you can see it, a great thing to do is just give the box a check over. Have a look for any big signs of damage that hasn't been clattered around in transit, because this can often be a telltale sign of what things might be like inside. Now, hopefully companies do their best to package these things up amazingly well, so everything should be fine, but it's always just a great idea to give it a little check over. I've checked the box over and all looks good. Now inside here should be my new Canyon Stoic 2 hardtail. Like I said, there's no tears, no big impacts on the box, so I think it's about time we opened it up and got building. Okay, let's delve in then. I've snipped it open. Let's see what we got. Ooh, right. Saddle and seat post, check. That is gonna be useful. I'm gonna need that one. And what have we got here? One front wheel, very nice. Right, ready? I'm excited. Let's get some of this out. We don't need that. That's gone. Ooh-wee! Look at that beauty. Let's get that on the floor. Okay, that's all the really good bits out. So I've got the frame and the wheels and the bits just down on the floor next to me, but always check the bike box at the end as well, because there's normally something like this. There we go, a Let's Get Started pack from Canyon. And most companies will do this, and there's gonna be everything in there I'm gonna need to build this bike. So if you're not in a fancy pants workshop like this, let's face it, we don't all have that, you can still build this bike up. Right, off we go here. That is everything out of the box. She's empty now. Now it's really good, keep hold of the box, because if you actually ever fly or travel with your bike, it can be a really good thing to reuse and put the bike back in. But if you're not, pop it back in the recycling. Do your bit to help out. All the cardboard, that can be recycled, but we don't need this. We're gonna build the bike up now. So, incoming. Okay then, like I said, you can build your new bike on the floor, but I'm gonna stick mine in the stand. And to do that, I need the seat post in. So it'll be on with a thin bit of grease all around the seat clamp here, around the collar. Just get that spread around there, look. Nice, it does it. When you do put the seat post in, look out for that minimum insertion length as well. There, it needs to be past that, otherwise you could damage your frame. So we'll get that slid on in. He says, boom. Tighten that bad boy up. She's good to go. Bike's in the stand now and she's looking good, but we're gonna get things assembled. We're gonna start at the front with the front wheel and then work our way back through the bike, exactly how we'd build it, set it up and get it out on the trail. I can't wait. This thing looks amazing. Cool, there's my bars. Handlebars first. So you're gonna take the front plate of the stem off there, pop the bars in and get that tightened back up nicely to the recommended torque settings if you have got a torque wrench. Front wheel time, let's get that bad boy in. So remove the axle, quick release, whatever you may have in there. Bit of grease, really important to make sure it greases up. You definitely don't want that axle seizing up in there. Make sure that's spread around real nicely. Let's get that front wheel in. Whoo-wee. She's taking shape now. Wheel engaged, axle. Bit of persuasion because it's the first time that's going in. Bikes together then, and it's coming along nicely. Bars are in and roughly where I want them, but we'll tune that up at the end. Axles greased, front wheels in. We're gonna make sure the headset's nice and tight. So for that, we're gonna quickly loosen off the stem bolt. So one this side, one on this side. Just nice and loose. And then this top bolt, oh, we need the old 5mm for that jobber. We're gonna just make sure that's nice and pinched up. Now when you do this one up, steering should still remain free, so that still turns nicely. What it does is that pulls together all the bearings in there, but you don't want to pull them too tight so that they're pinched. Yeah, she's good. Tighten that stem back up and you are good to go. From there, we're gonna move down to the bottom bracket and the chain set area. With the cranks and bottom bracket area then, just make sure everything's done up nice and tightly and in the correct places, nothing's rubbing. If you are putting something in fresh for the first time, bottom bracket, use the correct tool to put that one in. If it's threaded or press fit, use the right greases, etc. If your bikes come out of the box like this one, just make sure the cranks aren't loose at all. So yeah, all the bolts are all done up nice and tight. Same with the preload adjuster on here. If they're not, back off these pinch bolts here, make sure the preloader's done up nice and tight so it pulls the crank into the onto the spindle, and then nip those pinch bolts up nice and tight. But everything here is good to go. This bike obviously came with the back wheel in it, but not all do. So let's have a quick run through of actually how to drop the thing out and put it back in, just in case the one you've bought doesn't have the back wheel in. To remove the rear wheel, click the gears all the way down so that the chain is in the smallest sprocket at the back. This will make the chain the least tight and therefore the easiest to take the back wheel out. Also, turn off the clutch on your mech if it does have one. Undo the rear axle either with an Allen key or if it's quick release, slide it out that way, drop the wheel down. With the wheel out of the frame, make sure the axle is thoroughly greased and pop it back in, making sure it slides between the two chain lines, the top and the bottom. Pull the wheel up into the dropouts, slide in the axle and do it up to the appropriate tightness. Right, you've got your back wheel in, it's all looking good, everything's running as it should be. It's time to set those gears up because they may not quite be in line. So basically you've got your stops, which are 2 screws on the back of the mech, and your B tension screw. The stops, upper and lower, stop the mech, as the name suggests, from overshifting too far, so either going into the spokes or down onto like between the sprocket and the frame, because that's no good. And your B tension screw basically tightens up the spring in here and moves the entire mech back there. So if it's like when you shift this way, if it's fouling on the top chainring, then you would tighten that B tension screw and it'll bring it further back out the way. On a Shimano mech, you'll adjust all your stops and your B tension screw back here with a 2mm Allen key. I've been through this one and everything is looking good. A really great way to tell is that once the mech's in the top and the bottom gear, just have a look from the back and you'll see that the jockey wheels should be nicely in line with the corresponding chainrings on the cassette. When it comes to actual tension on the cable though, if the mech isn't shifting up through the gears or down through the gears quite enough, you would adjust this with the barrel adjuster on the shifter. So if it's not shifting down, you would slacken off the cable a touch just to give it a little bit more movement down. Vice versa on the way up, it's not shifting up through the gears quite enough, then you would add a little bit more tension and it will just pull it that little bit more onto the gears. Lastly on our build then, let's talk all things brakes because, well, they are pretty useful now and again, and safety is, I suppose, pretty important. When it comes to setting up your brakes, when it comes out of the box, you want to make sure that nothing feels too spongy, the lever's not pulling back to the bar or anything like that. And when you are building it, make sure you don't pull the levers whilst there's no disc or there's no spacer in the caliper here, because that can allow air to get in. You squeeze those pads together and air can get in behind the pistons. That's a no-go. There should be no rubbing, so you want to make sure with these 2 5mm bolts here that you position the caliper, you undo them, move that caliper ever so slightly so that you can see daylight essentially between the pad and the disc on both sides, so it's nice and even. That way they press nice and evenly too, won't wear the pads awkwardly. Like I said, no rubbing or anything like that, and then nip those pads back up. A great little hack here actually, undo the 2 bolts, pull the brake on nice and tight and nip them back up, and that way when the pads push in evenly, it holds the caliper in place. Do that up, caliper's in place, let go, bingo banger, and like this, should be running smoothly. Yeah, nice and smooth. So that is this bike built up and ready to go. I'm going to drop it onto the ground. We'll do a few setup tips and touch on a few things that aren't on this bike, but you will find on a lot of others. Then we're going to get out onto the trails. There she is then. What an absolute looker, fresh out the box and ready to go as is. Now there are a few things that you can do here when it comes to setup. That's going to be a whole different video again, but a few quick things. Saddle height and seat angle are something that you can change and play around with out on the trails, as is bar roll, lever position, all easily adjustable with the bolts on the clamps and things like that, as well as is bar width. I'll probably cut these down a little bit more. Now I'm going to leave this bike completely stock. The only thing I'm going to change on it is the tyres for our sponsors Vittoria's, but I think we better jump out to those trails and shred them and see what this thing's capable of. Let's go. There she is then, built up and ready to rock. What a ripper. Completely stock. All I've done is obviously change our tyres for our sponsor ones, but they're a very similar tyre to what was on before. And I think it's about time we dropped him and absolutely ripped this thing. how to build your first mountain bike from start to finish and everything in between, and take it for a shred as well. In fact, I shredded so hard, I shredded my bloomin' trousers, but hey ho, these things happen. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Hope you're enjoying Get Riding Week. Don't forget, why not hit the old subscribe button, give us a little thumbs up, because that's always great, and I'll catch you next time. Happy riding, everybody.